This is the second 1 hour intro that we've done to the wild kindness, and Elfi's going to talk about where the name comes from. We're calling it the creative exploration of sex and spirit, and this is work that Elfi's been doing for many years, and I consider her somewhat of a master in this area. Done a lot of exploring herself at the Haven and through Body Electric and all sorts of other places.
Mm.
Quite well known in these circles of sexual intelligence or erotic literacy, as she likes to call it.
Mhm.
Um, and I think what I love too, Elfie, about what you do is you always start with some grounding, and I think that's so crucial. And when we start our sessions, we like to ground in the territory we are and in the land. And I'm really happy to be coming to you from my little corner of Gabriola, which is in a little valley, 5 acres. The Descanso Valley, the Valley of Rest, near a little pond where we have the geese are. We have geese nesting geese, and there's a baby beaver for the first time on our pond, um, and we're here on Snuneymuxw territory, the Coast Salish people in this area. The Snuneymuxw who've been here thousands of years, and want to acknowledge that this is their home that we're in. Um, I don't know the Hokkaiman word for. I would like to know some Hokkaiman words for sex and spirit. I do know one word, Ait Shkwalawan, which is a kind of a spirit word. It's called Ait Shkwalawan, and it means good. As I know, as I've been told, it means by Gary Manson. It means good heart, good spirit.
Love that.
Ait Shkwalawan. So I want to bring in the Ait Shkwalawan into our time together today.
So, yeah, thank you. And before I start talking too much, I think maybe it would be a wonderful thing for us to just settle in into our bodies and feel our feet on the ground and just and let the day sort of slip away and bring ourselves to this present moment, to this beautiful word that you were just saying, the heart-centered kind of exploration of section spirit. So it's settle yourself. I love that word, settling. It's everything just falls down into the place where you're seating or standing, and just letting the top heaviness of your mind um, sink down as if it was soft pebbles falling to the ground of the pond of your being, and just settle there for a few moments and maybe just listen into your environment right now. What are the sounds that are around you? Maybe there's silence, and maybe there are very distant sounds. Maybe there's closer sounds of your place. And then when you take your listening deep inside, from the outside to the inside, maybe there are sounds that your body is making. Maybe your breath. Maybe if your breath could come a little deeper and you could feel a sound that comes with your breath. Maybe you can even hear your heart. Breathing all the way to the top of your skin and back in, feeling the pulse that comes with your heartbeat. And bringing your awareness down to your pelvis, the center of gravity of our body, but also the center where energy gathers. The place where the womb is, where the genitals are, where the generative energy that was all the source of all of us, really, when you think on it, it's through the beautiful bowl of our pelvis that um, long time ago, egg and sperm came together and settled in there for a while and grew and was nourished and got to grow. Just feeling that place of your own center, growing your own self and breathing in and out. Maybe touching your belly button with your finger or your palm, and just remembering a long time ago you were tethered via your umbilicus to the matrix of the mother. And give a thought to the ancestral lineage that tethers us to the mystery of the first ancestor all the way back, just playing with image, playing with your breath, playing with your belly, and feeling the tethering that you have to this very moment. And maybe there's a root growing from your pelvis down to your legs into the earth, sweet tendrils connecting with the land you're on, the non human beings on this land, and your people. Maybe there's another tendril that wants to grow from the womb to the heart. And maybe from the heart, you might imagine wings slowly flowing down your arms, coming to your fingertips, and maybe lifting your hands so that the palms of the hands are right next to your face, and maybe feeling the fingertips of your tendrils that grow out of your fingertips, and just giving your face a little touch and a little stroke, and then your throat, and come to rest on your heart, breathing in and out, and letting one hand slide to your belly, and maybe find that place between pubic bone and belly button, and just finding your way internally, connecting your hands and breathing in and out. And at the same time, feel your feet on the ground and feel your weight on your seat, letting go of any tension in your joints. Let your breath come out. Exhale, as we say. Exhale long enough until the inhale comes without effort. And then slowly open your eyes and give a little shimmy and shake, and making contact with the others in this circle, which is actually a triangle today. Let's imagine we're sitting in a triangular space that could be a circle, and we'll have a conversation together about wild kindness, exploring sex and spirit in creative ways, which, yeah. So, just give you a little intro of myself, Suzanne, because you don't know me, even though Mitch said a few things about me, very kind. And I'm a learner, so Mitch, when you said master, I got a little shiver. I thought, I want to run away. So mostly because I think sexuality and spirituality are never finished in terms of learning. Because just as I think I know something, things change, whether culturally or inside of myself or in my body, being this age. So there's always something going on that I would say is about learning. Mitch and I, when we were kind of brainstorming this series, we were, I think, Mitch, it was you who came up with wild kindness, which actually tickled me because I do want to, if there's any goal I have or an outcome of this course, is I really want people to feel much more friendly about the wildness that sexuality is, and and kinder to the body, kinder to one's own desires and arousals, and the problems that those things sometimes bring, especially in relationship. So my desire comes from the heart, where I really feel a strong commitment to help people become more and more friendly to sexuality, to spirituality, and not keep them separate all the time. My own particular upbringing had all those things separate. It was, like I said last time, from the belly button down, it was all forbidden zone. It was mysterious. It was uh, naughty, dirty, whatever, especially for women in my upbringing. And yeah, everything up here was really wonderful, whether it was intellectual learning or rational learning or spiritual learning, which all seem to be here. But when I gave a really good thought as a young woman, I thought, oh, you know, I was created through sexuality. And if there is a kind God, why would it be that we create constantly? We're created through desire, through attraction, all this. And I could not reconcile the difference. I couldn't separate it anymore, sexuality and spirituality, because it didn't make sense to me. Ironically, from my head, it didn't make sense. But it was another thing to actually feel okay in my body as a spiritual matter. That took a lot longer because somehow in the body, we carry patterns of shame. We carry patterns of guilt, even if we weren't raised religiously. It somehow seems to be that there is many people who, when they get into their body and sexuality, they start to feel that little, um, it's not okay to be wildly alive sexually. So my endeavor was to actually explore, is it possible to actually combine it and what I found out is in the heart is where everything meets. Is the sexual energy from the ground up, which is connected with nature, and the mere fact that, especially now in spring, everything is just going crazy, the flowers, the trees, and it's that same energy that creates us. And I really truly feel uh, what I would call erotically alive when I have that thought that what's going on in my maple tree out there is going on in here as well. I just need to open to it and allow the sensation to come. Allow those sensations to come. And those sensations sometimes could feel sexy, arousing, and we want to just open to that. I think so many times we are taught that when we feel that we have to do something about it, and so we then shut down instead of just letting it channel through us. So that's been my excitement to have people feel the arousal energy without having to dam it down, without damming it down, It doesn't have to look Hollywood wild. It doesn't have to look pornographic. It doesn't have to look anyway, except it could just be right here, right now, where you open to every cell of the body. And it could be arousing. It could be okay. It could be fully alive. It could be fantastic. It could be nourishing to the cells of the body. And I do believe that. So I think in here is where sex and spirit dance together. Matter and spirit, which comes through the breath, that the breath which impregnates matter and makes it more and more alive. So that's my motivation. Personally, I had um, I got pregnant the first time I ever had intercourse sex as a teenager. So that kind of set my life on a very drastic trajectory. It brought about that short moment brought about a huge thing in my life. And I got the power. I understood what sexuality, the consequence of uh, those few moments shifted my life, shifted everybody's life around me in not a positive way. And a lot of shame and guilt was involved with it for everybody concerned in that particular context. And I thought, wow, that's very interesting. And so I have since then really desired to just have these conversations about sexuality that we should have when we're young, and we don't have them, not very often. So anyway, now I'm here doing this work with adults, and and having fun doing it. So I one of the things we'll be teaching in the course, or I'll be touching on, is the different perspectives of sexuality. There's 7 different ways I talk about it, and one of them is, first of all, the context, our large context and our personal context, meaning what's our story. So that's going to be one of the tasks that I invite people to look at. How did what's my story, particularly regarding to sexuality? So, for example, my context was, I was brought up in a strictly Catholic village, but traditionally Catholic, but not not religiously Catholic. So
Yeah,
that's very
yeah,
different. You
yeah,
understand what I mean? And
yeah.
and so there were different rules for women and men,
Mhm, mhm,
and there were very confusing things.
mhm,
God is good, but he's not going to like you when you are having thoughts of desire,
right.
so very confusing. And so the thing. So that's one. The other context is the body I was born in is a female. I'm cisgender. My gender and my sexuality are aligned.
Mhm,
I would say that I'm, my desire body reaches is not quite heterosexual, but it's kind of pan. I'm attracted to the world, so
mm,
I can't say. And so those are I'm healthy. My socioeconomic, I was very poor as a child growing up. So those are all parts that shape our sexuality, the messages we get from the world and the media.
mhm,
And so, and then of course ancestrally, what is the story? And I think, and then the other part is the sensuality of this of sexuality is a sensuous thing.
mhm,
Because when you're born, the first 15 minutes you make up your mind, is this a safe world or not, depending how you're touched. And so the sensuality of the body is very arousing, in but not the way we think of
mhm,
as sex. So
mhm,
I know some of the most erotically alive people are nuns, by the way, that are so alive with the spirit that they're very turned on
mhm,
with the love. And that's a perfectly good example of saying, that's also sexuality.
Yeah.
We mustn't separate. It's sensuous. It's
Mhm.
of the body. It's of matter.
Mhm.
It's the earth. It's my earth. It's my body. It's alive. It's vibrating.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then the other part of sexuality is what which we call objectification and sexualization, which this culture
Mhm.
markets sexuality. Sex sells. You don't look good enough by this shampoo, and then
Right.
you'll be sexy. So there is the non-consensual use of sexuality as a power over someone else. So that's the world we mostly swim in. And when we really start looking at it, and some people live in that world in sexuality. It's all about capture. It's about domination, submission, non-consensual things,
Mhm.
and some people live in that realm more consciously and consensually. That's a whole other story then. Then
Right.
it becomes more sensually. So, we can see then another circle would be gender, talking about sexual identity. Who am I attracted to romantically, emotionally, and sexually? So those are different ways of being attracted to people.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, we can have a whole conversation about what is that? Or maybe I'm not sexually aroused or attracted to anybody, so I'm an asexual, but I'm here in the heart. I'm loving people.
Yeah.
And then the whole person sexual health would be, how well do you know your body? How well do you know physiology? How well do you know your anatomy? How well do you know your genitals and where your arousal? And sexual health, of course, which is very important. Um, and that's often the only thing that's taught at school is the oh, be careful that you don't have
Right.
sex, you don't get sex, STI, etc.
Right.
Pleasure is often not talked about at all in which is a whole other conversation. And then in the center of then the intimacy part, sometimes when people become very emotionally intimate with one another, their sexual charge diminishes. This is what happens, when you get attracted, you're highly romantically charged for each other, and after a while that shifts because your chemistry shifts literally in your body. And what do you then do to keep the erotic alive? It's a whole other story. And in the center of it all is, what do you value? And what is the spiritual value that you build your life on, and therefore also sexuality? It's not separate. Yeah. So
I'm curious about when you say the spiritual, that what we value or our spiritual outlook is like
mhm.
the
Yeah.
middle of the flower or the basis.
Yeah, for
And
example,
yeah,
yeah,
can you give an example of that? Yeah.
I'll give you an example. So when we work with couples, my partner and I, sometimes, people quote, value honesty. It's a big value. We teach kids not to lie. We value. But when it
Mm,
comes to sexual desire, often people are not honest with their partners because they
yeah.
don't know how to navigate eros inside themselves, let alone amongst them. So these conversations about sexual desire, if your value is honesty, why does it stop when we start talking about sexuality in some
Right.
in some places? So that's an example of when I value kindness. Why does my kindness stop when my partner has desire for someone else? Why do I get angry? Why do I get and it's a very valuable exploration.
Mm,
And so if I look at my core values, as some people call them, why does it stop in the erotic realm? Why do I get to lie there? And then what is Like, if my value is privacy, then what does that mean? Versus, so that's the core of sexuality, is all part of that. It's not separate from the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it is all that's all part of, even lying to myself, for example. It's, if I have, I don't know, if I have a dream, a sexy dream, and it doesn't suit my self-image, do I then lie about it to myself, or instead of just surrendering, oh, isn't it wonderful? What does this energy teach me?
Yeah.
We have a hard time experiencing pleasure in the body, especially genital pleasure that wants to arouse, because we think we have to do something with it. It's like it's a being and doing thing. It's like when I'm angry, do I always have to express it? Can I just be? You know what I'm saying? It's all part of the same complementariness, actually. It's hard to live in that flow. And that's part of the erotic, is the polarity between this and that, and between the heart and the pelvis, and between the head and the genitals, and so on. So life is movement. The erotic energy that creates everything is movement. Is Everything moves, from the atomic to the wind that you can't see. Then things move. Your breath, your blood, your electricity through your body. It all is movement. But we want to capture it, and sometimes we want to make it not move, especially when it moves the way I don't want it to move, or I don't want my partner to move it that way, or I don't want to have this kind of thoughts, or so when we say to people, when somebody says, "Oh, having sex," people say having sex, I always say, "What do you mean by that?"
Yeah.
And people say, "Well, don't you know?" And the thing is, we assume everybody knows what we mean when
Uh-huh.
we speak. So I want you to describe it to me. And then, so what do we call sex, and what do we call everything else? Like, what is that? So it's important to actually speak about it. What do we mean by it?
What do you mean by it, Elfi? I'm curious. What's your
Well,
knowledge?
one of the things as sex educator is, we actually always, we say, when somebody says, she wants to have sex with me, I say, "Well, does that mean intercourse? Penis in vagina?"
So you
And so,
distinguish intercourse from sex.
no,
Start.
it's also, it's like, that's the problem. It's
Yeah.
it's sometimes people, because it's such a phallically focused culture that we come from, that often, um, when people say foreplay for what? For the real thing? What is that? So
Uh-huh.
it's not like, if we start to expand the idea of sensuality and eros,
Mm-hmm.
then it's all part of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no main event, but it has been for thousands of years, that there's this whole understanding that that's it, the penetrative act of sex. And it's a beautiful thing, don't get me wrong, but when we call everything else not sex, we get into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
When I can lean against a tree and feel the energy of the tree up my spine, and if I get aroused, meaning I have pleasure, I'm in communion with a living being, and I have pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do that with my partner, I have pleasure. It's that's the problem, where we've started to call things, sexual or not sexual. It's like making a big banquet of food, and and saying, well, this is the food. This is one
Right.
thing is the food, because I like it best.
Right.
And everything else is not food.
Right.
So anyway, we can play with those kind of ideas now.
Mm.
Yeah. In my experiential workshops, we do everything through the body. When there's a lot of experiential things that would actually, for example, you know, having people look at their body with a mirror, their genitals, their anus, and just using it as a meditation,
Hmm.
just looking and listening to what comes up,
Yeah.
because the information is there. When you do that and you gaze and you breathe and you make it a meditation, all the stuff that's connected with that part of your body will show up as consciousness. And that's why, we say, please write things down that come to your head, because I could teach you things, but what's more important is what is in there that's unique to yourself.
Mm.
We've had this where people just have all sorts of reactions, shame messages from from long ago, and grief, all sorts of things show up, and shame and disgust, um, and that is the learning. It is the embodied learning. Um, some people call it pleasure activism, where you actually you actually go into the body to find out what is there. And if there is a shame body, let's listen to it. Where's, how can I relate, go into relationship with that shame body, and see if it could transform. I see it, I see the whole gift of sexuality, whether it's absolutely wild fucking to the gentlest erotic connection with touch, and I think it's all a gift from nature. It's how we hold it and how we relate to it, and whether we are kind to one another. That in there is something about um, dancing together with consent, and that when we have that, or a language where that is unfettered by shame and morality, then people can play as wild as they want with each other. It's not happening, sometimes. I mean, more and more, thank God, people are more interested in that. But it always begins with my own relationship with my own sexuality and my body.
Right.
Because if I'm not clear, um, if I'm still ashamed of my own body, uh, how can I share it with someone else? Or if I feel shame and I can articulate it with my partner, then the healing in that sense can proceed. You can be in relationship with that.